How to become a 21st century social activist. Want to make a difference in the world? It's easier than ever thanks to modern technology. Here's how you can become a 21st century social activist. You will need internet access, a Twitter account, a Facebook account, a smartphone with a camera and video recording capability, a YouTube account with a mobile setup, a live video broadcasting app, text-to-donate programs, and online petitions. Step 1. Know what a 21st century social activist is. A person who uses modern communication technology, like text messaging, Twitter, and Facebook, to help bring about social change. Step 2. Use social media to raise awareness of a wrong. An Egyptian citizen's anonymous Facebook group about the torture killing of a local man by police helped topple the 30-year presidency of Egypt's President Hosni Mubarak. Step 3. Use hashtags, words or phrases prefixed with the hash or pound symbol, on Twitter to help spread, share, and organize information about a certain topic. Hashtags can be used to coordinate protests, update people about an ongoing crisis, and crowdsource information. Keep in mind that authorities have become savvy at keeping an eye on revolutionary activity by monitoring hashtags. Step 4. Witnessing an injustice in person, record it on your cell phone and post it to YouTube. You'll need a YouTube account with a mobile setup that allows you to upload directly from your phone to your YouTube channel, or provide a feed of events on the ground as they happen with a live video broadcasting app. Step 5. Raise money for a good cause by setting up a text-to-donate program where people can make a charitable donation by texting a keyword to a short code number. The donation is typically added to the user's monthly phone bill. Go to movements.org for step-by-step instructions on setting up a text-to-donate program. Step 6. Create an online petition for your cause. The site freesakane.org started after a Canadian bookstore mogul read that an Iranian woman had been sentenced to death by stoning for adultery. The public pressure resulted in a stay of execution for the mother of 2. Did you know? Tunisian President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali fled the country weeks after the self-immolation of a fruit vendor who was protesting high unemployment, rising prices, and government corruption was distributed across the internet, causing widespread uprisings.
So I know that video might seem a little basic to the people that are going to be coming to a social empowerment forum. But the reason we show it is that there are people all over the world, whether it's in, say, rural Egypt or people in, say, East Timor, who don't have access to this sort of information, and for whom this type of digital empowerment really does help people make that connection. And so what I'd like to do now is call up Ashok from Sri Lanka, Sherbanu from Pakistan, Supan from Nepal, Prince from Bangladesh, and Absi from the Maldives. And we're going to have a discussion on youth and digital empowerment. And, oh, let's make sure. So I'd like to start off the discussion by just asking sort of a general question, and I'd like a response from each of your countries and the perspective from each of the countries. Is how do you think youth across the region and specifically in your countries approach social media, and what is their view towards this engagement? Can we start? Let's start with the smallest country. Let's start with the Maldives.
Youth engagement.
Yeah, and how the youth views social media, because we hear, you know, people talk about Facebook. We heard yesterday in the session on rural empowerment that even the poorest person, when you take them to the computer, the first thing they want to do before getting an email address, before looking at news or anything, is they want a Facebook. And so what's the engagement of the youth in the Maldives vis-a-vis social media, and is there an empowerment angle, whether it's social, political, or economic?
Yeah, actually the Maldives has a population of 3.5 lakhs I would say 1 lakh is engaged in Facebook. Twitter, around half of that. People use social media actually to find out what's happening and also to know more about other people and to engage with others outside. And that's the most used platform in our country.
We live in the age of technological revolution. So I would say that in Pakistan, the youth, they come from different categories. We have the upper class who have a lot of access to internet, and then we have the lower class, just like in any South Asia country that do not have as much access. But the overall trend in Pakistan is that the people are getting closer towards social media, and they're using it for different purposes. And I would actually like to thank the youth, because when you consider the age bracket, when you go to a little higher age bracket over there, changing and making a difference in terms of changing ways, old ways, it's a little hard. We people, me Pakistani, for example, I'm a superstitious person. When a new thing comes to me, it's hard for me to accept. But then when you come to youth, it's more easier for them to accept a new change. And since the technological revolution is the new thing that's coming, the youth has embraced it, and they're using it in different ways in Pakistan. The recent example is the election campaign that occurred over there. A party that was out of the scene, a place where politics is actually done through ages. There are parties, family politics occurs in our country, but this time a party which was which had never been heard before, only through the use of social media by the youth, that party came into power in my region.
The situation of Bangladesh is kind of similar with Pakistan, Maldives, also India. I believe all the South Asian countries share the same experience of social media, which is the majority of the youth community, they don't actually use those Facebook, Twitter, but almost all of them has access to cell phone or mobile phone or text messaging. So that form of media is very much available in our country, and I will be talking about some of the activities that were done by the youths in our country that had changed the way we look at everything in a very, very nice way. So I will be waiting for that after telling what the role of youths are playing right now. So while we are talking about the youths of Bangladesh, we see that almost 39% of the people are youth, and they are accepting or welcoming all the new technologies at first, and then it's going to the adult or the senior citizens. So I would say they are very open to all this kind of media. They are and they are trying to, though most of them use that for entertainment purpose or the communication purpose only, but it is very much possible to empower themselves with the technological tools too.
Hi, I'm Sapan from Nepal. So talking about the youths in Nepal, so the 40% of the total population of Nepal are youth. So radio is still a popular means of communication in Nepal. So in comparison to other South Asian countries, like most of the urban youths have proper internet access, but almost I have to say that so none of the rural youths have proper internet access. So every day, according to the statistics of Ministry of Communications and Information, so 70% of women and 70% of girl and 90% of boy use internet in Nepal every day. So there has been different campaigns led by youth, like Occupy Balatar is one of the great movement in Nepal. So using ICT and Tweet for Causes and Book for Village are some youth campaigns that led by youth. So mostly internet and ICT has been used by youth in mostly the urban parts of Nepal, but in rural, so there are lots of telephones and the PCOs in the rural part, but not the proper access of internet in village areas. But in urban areas, youths are using internet very.
Can you speak a little bit to the mentality? I mean, we've heard, you know, in Pakistan that people there, even the youth, there is a little bit of that divide, that superstition about something new, and that in Bangladesh people are using it for entertainment and communication. What's the mentality of the typical social media user in Nepal?
Okay, I understand. So basically, most of the youths use internet. I can see that. I did a research on YouTube. How many population? I mean, how many youths use YouTube for what purposes? And so most of the youth use internet. I mean, YouTube for Bollywood promos, Hollywood promos, songs, and etc. So so basically, I can say that. So the purpose of internet for youth is basically entertainment, but there are Wikipedia and all the information sites. So students, I mean, youths are collecting information from social network sites. So basically, the thing is,
Sri Lanka, if you take, there is this common attitude in this part of the world, especially in South Asia, that youth are not very easily accommodated in a forum with the elder people or the mature people. In serious issues, the voice of the youth is not that much listened to. I mean, they have not given the space. So what social media has done is, it has given the youth to create an own space for themselves, and today the elder generation is turning around to see, okay, these guys are doing something very productive there. We have to look into them. Now, in Sri Lanka, that kind of a thing has happened. Because it's a common attitude, a very pessimistic attitude towards the youth views in our part of the world. So what has happened in Sri Lanka is, the youngsters have created a space in where they make voice, they make opinions, they make their views on very serious issues. I remember a personal experience with one of my very close friend's mom. She said she was very recently, she joined Facebook, and she has accidentally saw one of my friend's post on a very serious social issue. And she was speaking to me, she said, oh my God, I never thought my son can, you know, think so deeply and write so much. So I said, yes, that's what the youth are doing. You're not looking into this. So the youth have created a space for them. And even on serious issues, the youth are very vocal. I have to point out this. Sri Lanka is currently facing a hate campaign through social media from certain groups, certain extremist groups. And there are moderate youths which use social media to counter that campaign, as well as get like-minded youth together and even organize protests. Like, you know, they showed in this video, thankfully no one was arrested. But that created a new belief in the youth that they on their own can achieve a lot of things. And social media was a very worthwhile avenue. So social media is very positively looked upon by the youth in Sri Lanka, while the authorities have now been alert-minded, and they are very pessimistic about social media because the youth are trying to voice out. Because earlier they did not have a media or avenue to voice out, but now they have created their own.
So I think I'm hearing that social media can be a tool to learn about the world, a tool for entertainment, a tool to communicate among yourselves, whether just for the day-to-day communication or whether it can be a way to communicate on some very serious social issues. And the five of you are on the panel. We didn't do introductions because we hope people can read about it all on the very impressive resumes of these five panelists in the booklets, but I'd be curious to hear maybe one or two examples of how you've used social media, not just for what we've heard, or I mean this great example we've heard from Sri Lanka, and another couple of examples of how social media has been used to produce some positive social change.
Recently, the election had occurred in Pakistan. So there was a group organized throughout the country in each and every community at a polling station. There were couple people, common people, and they were having internet connection, and any corruption, any wrong act that would occur over there, it would directly be reported to a center in Karachi, where a group of friends of mine, they would sit together. They had already made an internet website for the election voting day. And any problem at any polling booth that would occur, it would directly be reported on that forum. And that forum actually gained so much audience, it was being tweeted and hashtagged again and again. And there were problems at a couple booths. One of the booths where I was, the queue that had been broken, and there were some problems with the ballot boxes. And there was such a fuss created over there on the internet that the police had to come, and they had to actually do the voting all over again in that polling station. So just through social media, a common man with a voice, it actually got heard, and there was an action taken after that. Then there are other things as well. There's a lot of problem going on in Pakistan related to violence and education problems. Take the example of Malala Yousafzai. She had a voice. She's become an international figure right now. Whatever she did, it was all through social media. A girl, a 14-year-old girl, she actually made a whole a group of people from whom the whole world is scared, about whom the whole world talks about. They actually started fearing a 14-year-old girl, and they had to attack her because of her voice through social media.
Be curious in Bangladesh with the, it does have some unusual statistics. It is one of the most urban of the South Asian countries, and in other urbanized areas or other urbanized places outside of South Asia, social media has become sort of a tool of youth culture where people are saying, oh, well, people are wasting their time on Facebook, or you heard about the terrible case in my country of somebody being assaulted, and then the picture being passed around on social media. But are you seeing the youth taking on social media in that way, or is there a particular form of, or a particular project where social media is being used for a positive change?
Okay, actually, in every community there is several types of people. So some people are activists, some people will always seek their life in a very casual way and will not get involved in anything. So we have both types of people. And to answer your question, we have a lot of very good social activists which are from the youth community, and who have already done very, very good social movement using technology. First of all, the biggest example I want to give is the Shahbag Square example. I think many of you have seen it on TV because it was telecasted in international TV. So what happened was there was a ruling that the war criminal will be sentenced, will be given life imprisonment without giving a sentence to death. Now that was a court decision, but some of the youths, some of the social activists, they did not agree on that. So one of them, I remember, he just put a status that I am going to Shahbag Square right now, and I will be sitting there. If anybody wants to come, then join me, because we want to protest this thing. Then he was a blogger, so there was a lot of his followers, and he went there, and a lot of students from Buet came there and joined him. And there was, within a few minutes, there was 50-something people, youths, who were there. And there, after half an hour or 1 hour, the population started increasing because the message was spread very rapidly. Then a police car came in, and they wanted to, break the protest. Then those youths who are socially activists, and they are very much educated and very logical. So they have convinced the police that we are doing everything peacefully and will not do any kind of damage in anything. So the police let them continue that protest, and that protest has become one of the largest protests in Bangladesh. And there are a lot of outcomes of that social movement. So Shahbag Square has given a lot of focus on the things that our youths are actually raising their voice against some of the things that are not going really well. So I think that there are activists, and then again, the activists, they are on the field, and there are some who just share the messages or give their viewpoint and what to say, what not to say. So overall, the youths are very much active, but the main thing is to engage a youth. Since the topic is engaging youth with ICT, the first thing we need to make sure is have a very good ideology. Because being a representative of the youth community, as a youth, I think if I don't ideologically believe in something, I'm not going for it. But we see in our country, some of the adults, they almost very much time, they do something that is against their ideal, but they don't have any scope to do anything about it. But the youths, they will never do anything that is against their ideology. So if something matches with their ideology, then they come forward. But also, it needs to be very much less commitment as well as entertaining too. Now, Shahbag Square, that was a very serious issue, but we saw that the youths, they're singing over there, they're dancing, they're doing, it's kind of a festival, then again they're protesting against it so that they don't get bored. So they're actually reinventing the ways of protest. So I think it's a very good initiative that the youths of Bangladesh are taking in this perspective.
Well, and it's good to hear that we have this activity. I mean, one quick reminder is that this idea of sort of making social protest engaging and interesting, if we all think back to 1946 when Gandhiji was taking the Long March, he did come up with a series of songs. And so, you know, even I wouldn't call myself a youth anymore, but I think this idea that we're reinventing something new, but the idea that these tools can help us make something that we've been doing for a long time new. And I'd like to ask each panelist to talk about what the challenges are faced in their particular country before then going out and taking some questions from the audience.
See, I use this metaphor always. Social media is like a knife, very sharp knife. You can use it to cut vegetables and have a healthy meal, or you can even use it to kill people. So, social media is a very powerful tool. If you take Sri Lanka, it was the moderates who started using social media first. Everyone wants to get into Facebook. The first thing people, when they get internet, the first thing they use is not to open an email anymore. It's Facebook. Everyone wants Facebook. And the authorities, even the government and everything started, looking into the Facebook and Twitter and all these social media. And the extremists started taking over the social media. Today, there's a racial hatred problem in Sri Lanka. Small organizations, very extreme organizations are involved in very extreme anti-religious, anti-race missions. They used Facebook and social media to spread hatred, to recruit more youngsters, to brainwash them. See, they create this hatred post and they share it. It goes viral. They create a fear inside these youngsters that you are losing your identity. And this is done through social media. They have mastered the art of social media to spread hatred. So there is a social media battle between the extremists and moderates. And so what happened was there was a campaign created by, I'm also part of a campaign, it's called Love Not Hate campaign. So we started to counter. There are a lot of people, a lot of youngsters, social media activists, they started this new campaign called Love Not Hate to counter this hatred campaign. But the unfortunate situation, the unfortunate reality is that these hatred campaigns have more followers, more likes than the Love Not Hate campaign, but we are growing. So what we did was, you can see the website, it's my friends were doing, they started that project. It's love-nothate.org. So we made a lot of celebrities take the pledge of not to hate, including the cricketer Sangakkara. I think most of you are aware here. So from cricketers to singers, we made them pledge, and that is going on. So it is a social media battle, but it's better, taking the war from real world to social media is better. At least no blood will be shed.
Right, in the Maldives, actually, it's the election time. Now, actually, we have gone to the second round. When the first round was not actually uh, well, won by any party by 50%. So we have the second round on 28th. What happened was that, I mean, the politicians use social media to influence the people, their mind, actually. People are actually, these people use very negative campaign scenarios like wake up now and not 30, no 3, not 30 means our former president actually ruled for 30 years and the other guy, actually the young one, actually ruled for 3 years. This is also a campaign. In these campaigns, actually, people used to say things that the others should not sometimes accept. But it is actually the fact that, people are saying things, bad things to each other and doing negative campaigns, as Ashok said just now. So which is really a challenge for us. And also, people talk about, issues that, people are afraid to use social media. Some people are still actually to raise their voice. Some people are not very, very familiar with social media, and so they are afraid to actually raise their voice against, issues. Those who are very confident come up and then express their views. Most people can't. So that's another challenge we face.
So I keep hearing that that social media is again, it's a tool, and it's how that tool gets used. When I logged into my Facebook this morning, my friends in America have been urging at least their American friends, to contact Congress because of a particular change in a social program that was just voted on. And that may result in some social action, which then may result in political action. I'm curious, is it just, and we've heard that there are extremist groups, there are political parties, are there other challenges faced perhaps in Bangladesh, Nepal, or Sri Lanka, or Pakistan, besides these two types of challenges of political parties and extremist groups?
Okay, actually there are...
And I'm asking about Bangladesh in particular because there was a law that was just passed relating to criminal libel through social media.
Yes, so if you talk about engaging youths, you can engage youths for movements, then again for development. Now, in both sectors, there are different kind of challenges. For engaging youths in movements, there is obviously security issue and also lack of experience. That is one of the major problems that the youths are facing. While taking a decision, we know what we want, but we cannot take the right decision most of the time. So that with age we grow up and we gain more experience, we see the real world, but we the youth never saw it. We don't know what is going to happen if I go right now in Shahbag Square, and if the police come, what am I going to do? Now that is one problem we are facing, and to solve that problem, we need the help of the adult citizens or the major people who are the decision maker to actually engage us. We should not be, I don't think we should be taking decisions, we should be given a guide way by the older people. And then there is another thing is security. Now we have during the Shahbag incident, 2 people were killed, 2 activists were killed, and few of the bloggers were arrested by the government too. Now, yes, maybe they were wrong, or maybe there was reason to arrest them, but the thing is, this concerns the other normal youths who are living with their family and who doesn't want to go to jail because they have their career way ahead. So the security becomes a very major concern, and for that, lot of the youths are going again back. So when the Shahbag movement started, there was a lot of people. But after one blogger was attacked, then the percentage of people become decreased. Because there was not that much security. Yes, there was, but the security was violated. So these 2 major concerns, and while in the developing sector, I don't think there is a major issue while if the youths are wanting to do some social work for the benefit of the society, and then their parents normally support them. But due to our education system becoming very hard and due to lack of jobs and everything, our parents don't usually support us like they should, or like the people in America do.
So I think one of the challenges is translating the change that's generated in social media. Once it's translated into the so-called real world,
yes,
you face the real world challenges, whether it's political parties that want people to get their vote, whether it's security forces who don't want to see online protests become protests in the streets. So I'd be curious to hear, because Nepal is right now in it's also in the election season. I'm curious what sort of challenges, and you're emerging from a long-term insurgency, a transition from a monarchy to a republic. So what are those challenges you think that you're going to be facing in the next year or two in turning social media into real-world change?
Exactly. So it took almost 15 years for radio and television to, collect 30 lakhs population to make their listeners and viewers. But social media has been one of the finest way to inform, inspire, and people in Nepal. So in Nepal, 30 lakhs population use Facebook every day. So as your question said, that we are on the way to our election. So before 4 months ago, our Constitutional Assembly was dissolved because of some reason. So actually, in 2 months of time, so we are going for another election. So actually, let's hope that will go fine. So actually, social media will play a very vital role for that. So we have some campaigns for like elections campaigns. We have some campaigns like Occupy Balota, as I already said that. So this campaign is one of the biggest in the history of Nepal. So most of the youth activists come there and talk different things about politics, like elections should happen, elections should not happen, what the government should do, or what youth need to do. So the thing is that the social media have to play the very important role for the election process, and we are doing, and social media is doing for the election. So actually, I'm really not aware about the election should happen or not. So that's why.
And I'm not going to push too hard, but I will invite our colleague from Pakistan, because no one has mentioned. When we started off, we talked about when social media started, it was the elites. It tended to be moderate people. And then eventually the government got on social media, and my own government's on social media. I hope everyone has liked the American Center. But one of the things that we've seen in my previous professional life, I focused a lot on the Middle East, or West Asia as we call it here. And I think we saw in Iran, for example, where you have a huge desire for people to connect, to use social media, but where the government is either afraid of it or uses social media as a tool of oppression. So we haven't spoken too much on those challenges, but I would, not to put my Pakistani colleague on the spot, because we'll go to the audience next, but to speak about the full range of challenges.
Challenges, we've talked a lot about the, we've talked a lot, sorry, I was saying that we've already talked about the political aspects of the challenges, but the thing is, I would first like to talk about the challenges that are being faced by the individuals themselves. We, the youth, we are using ICTs, we log into our Facebook, but the thing is, there's another world over there, and the world we live in, South Asians, sometimes there's a gap between the world we live in and the world that is on our Facebook. When I look at the notifications, some of my friends, they're in Maldives, some of them are going for visits to Hawaii, and everything. And everything's happening over there. So when I am sitting back at home, there's this psychological thing going in my mind that the world is doing a lot and I'm being left behind. There's a sort of depression sometimes that occurs in me. This is a small sort of challenge for me as a youth engaging in ICT. Then there comes the identity problem for the youth. You can't relate sometimes to what is happening in the social media, the social world, and what's happening around you. one of the other problems, the government, as you mentioned, you'd be trying to post something, but the government, if it's not in their favor, like a situation, sometimes there's a similar situation happening over here. The government is not responding on an issue that has occurred because of their self-interest. Some of you, I won't be talking about that issue right now, but whenever similar issues occur over there that are not in the interest of the government, they actually ban Facebook, they ban YouTube, and they block networking websites over there. So you'd be trying to make a social issue more common, let others know about it, but the government would be doing the opposite. They'd give it different names for it. Sometimes it would be in the name of religion, sometimes they'd use some other name for it, but somehow they're actually making your voice not heard. I don't know if most of you know, but YouTube has been banned in Pakistan. Facebook was banned once, and then when I would write articles about why Facebook is banned and why it isn't, I would get feedback in my Facebook notifications that you shouldn't be bothered about it, and they'd actually know my profile, and you'd get silly stuff on your Facebook inbox. Yes, and there's also another problem that's associated with the youth. When the youth, with the citizen journalism, it's actually mostly the student journalism, us people telling, but what the problem is that the traditional journalism field, they're actually targeting the students, that they don't have accountability, the correctness. The traditional media, they take in sources, they actually verify everything, but sometimes people like us, we tweet anything that comes, that is the first perception we have. So we tweet up something, but maybe that is a misjudgment of ours, and the overall story might be something which isn't reported correctly. So the youth, these are some of the problems that the youth is facing in terms of ICT.
So I'd like to throw it out to the audience now. So we have a question over there. As the microphone moves over, I just want to remind people, and I'd be curious to hear the reaction of the audience. One of the things, as former Secretary of State Clinton suggested as she was leaving office, was a mass distribution of phones to people, so that people in countries where, say, the registrar demands a bribe or a policeman will pull people over for a bribe, she suggested that people take a picture and post it on Twitter or Facebook, such that the story might not be a fully reported story with dozens of sources and a response back from the police about bribery within the police force, but that it would just be, the story would be that picture of the traffic cop saying, you want to keep driving, you need to give me, £5 or something. So let's start taking questions for the
Sir,
audience.
my question goes for the Maldives. How effective are the youth of like Maldives when Mohammed Nasheed was toppled by Wahid in a coup? But there was no such outrage as we must have seen in Egypt when social media helped them to take on the streets. But what happened with Nasheed, he had to hide in the embassy for such a long time, and there was no such youth participation on those fronts where whatever that things happened, that should have come come out of the boardroom of Maldives, and everybody should have participated in an equal proportion to really voice their concern, as we have seen in other parts of the Arab Spring and all happening in different perspectives. But we haven't heard of that type of movement in Maldives.
So if I understand it, your question is, what role could social media have played to help the youth engage more in the political movement?
Actually, Nasheed and his followers are very clever in the social media thing. So actually it's his followers and his party people are actually dominating the social media in the country. That's why actually there was no voice raised against when he was hiding in your embassy in the Maldives.
But
did I answer your question?
I think he was asking how there could have been more youth engagement when the president was deposed, and how if social
That is
media,
my question.
Yeah?
Yeah, that is what I want to hear. Basically, even if that's what you're talking about, then where is the role of the youth? Matlab, we are definitely talking about the youth being empowered. So even if Nasheed, what you're talking, that he manipulated the things, so there was no such action that have been taken place by the youth, as has mentioned by one in the Sri Lanka or Pakistan, that they have played a very huge role. Definitely, they have played. We have seen Pakistan coming to in the terms of democracy for 5 years. That never happened before. But something like that, even if some manipulation happened, the youth of Maldives have never given such a story that can come to the fore or to the attention of the world in any order.
I find that Nasheed's people are strong, and his followers are actually stronger than the rest of the other group. Actually, he is minority, but still he dominates in the social media. And he actually, when he was hiding against, people were not using social media that much, but his followers, and they were resting on the road, they were actually throwing stones, they were having, havoc on the street. I don't know why actually, but he was hiding, but his group is again actually protesting as well, and in the social media. So this is how it's happening. I'm quite afraid about it. I'm not actually in support of any party, but but I'm not actually in favor of Nasheed.
So I think what we've heard, again, is that social media doesn't necessarily translate into real world change, and that it requires you to be organized not just on Facebook or on Twitter, but having that organization so that when you get to the square, you keep the youth engaged, you make it entertaining, you have some way to keep that going once you go from the screen to the street. So I think, yeah. Okay, so let's take from the third row here. Third row? Or fifth row, and then we'll go to the third row.
Okay, I'm Shusmita from Bangladesh. Just like to answer one question you asked to Zubair about the new law that just got passed for the information, I would say, monitoring in our country.
The criminal libel law.
The criminal tribunal law, and then recently an act is being passed for monitoring the social media and right to information. So a new act is being talked about. So the act, I don't remember the exact wordings, but it says that there can be the police or the government or the monitoring authority can take an action if something has been put on somewhere. It's like a vague, very vague clause. Something has been put somewhere which might affect somebody's feelings. So suppose I have a status on my Facebook message saying that early in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, I was walking around the road and I saw somebody milking the cow. So how it can, it's like a very innocent status. So it can, if it's like a religious person, imam shows it, it might hurt it feeling saying that, why am I walking around the road at 5:30 in the morning and why I'm not saying my Fajr prayer? Or it might be, if I go religiously and see somebody is milking a cow, so it's we go by Hindu religion. Cow is like a very pious thing to them. So I'm abusing that thing on Facebook. Or it can be a feminist person can say, why this girl is walking around the road at 5:30 in the morning, and that can hurt so many people in so many ways and so many feelings. So having something like there as a right like a right to information. At one point, our government is saying that we want digital Bangladesh, which is like the slogan for the government. So we want digital Bangladesh. So we want right to information, right to education acts that we have in there. But at the same time, we have silly clauses like this, which might put me in there. So we have a joke saying that if this clause is getting passed, so early in the morning, we will have a blank status and 1,000 people will like it. And the reason is that because I myself has SMS'd my people what I was thinking, because I'm not allowed to put it on Facebook. And people liked it and just liked the blank message. And that is a like for my status. So it's something like that. And at the same time, if you look into our Prime Minister...
But I think I might be offended if there's a blank statement, because obviously you have a lot to say, and it would be offensive to me to not hear what you have to say.
Of course. So at the same time, if we look into our Prime Minister, who would be... I remember one time is that when the first time the cabinet minister, the journalists were like surrounding her, and she was holding a laptop with her, and she was, everybody was asking, who is your cabinet? Who is in your cabinet? I quote her. She said, check your emails. And I was so surprised, like, okay, fine. She's more than 60, and she's asking the journalists to check their emails because she's going to email it to them. And she live tweeted that the recent budget session we had. So she's a very tech-savvy person, but at the same time, she is passing all these clauses which might put her into trouble because she updates her Twitter and social media, and it might cause me any hurt to my feelings, and I might file a case to her. So this is what is. It's like something in there in the clause, and I might be in trouble for saying that in a foreign country. But at the same time, it's like this is the difference between, you know, the virtual world and what isn't written in the paper and what might get translated on the field. So.
Thank you.
Just comments,
let's
question
take a question from the audience, so back to the fifth row.
Myself Akil Khan, I'm an engineer by profession. Social media has got a tremendous responsibility in bringing change anywhere. In Southeast Asia, we have got the common problems. What I find here in India, when there was a big movement in 2011, there was a change against people were accumulating against corruption. They were raising their voice, and the media has extensively covered those movements. And there was a hope in our country that something is going to be changed, which is not changed for over 64 years. So there was a very big hope, and people have come out of their home all over the country and all over the world were watching. There's something going to change in India. But what culminated because of many factors includes political compression, political pressure also. How we will be able to counter all these pressures in bringing change and bringing something to a logical conclusion? That is my question. And Maldives, I think, has got the similar problem. Pakistan has got the similar problem. We should come out to conclude, means to give something concrete result in terms of our political change or social change. That is what is my point. How we are going to get it, and how the media is going to change the political compulsion or all those problems which they are facing.
So I'm going to take prerogative as the moderator to change the question slightly and ask, how can the youth play that role in using ICT to make this real world change? So, because I want to focus, even though, you know, we tend to, you know, the panel is young, except for a couple of us, that we haven't been talking too much on the youth and ICT.
Bringing change in one day or a couple days, this is a very Platonic statement. Change comes with time. And when we're talking about social media, this is just a tool. This is just an attempt. As far as the youth is concerned, they're making their efforts. There are different social media organizations evolving everywhere. You'd come across so many organizations in all of these countries. What the thing I feel is that there should be sustainability. They should be continued. The different organizations, they should come collaborate together. That their voice is even more stronger. There cannot be a one simple solution to things. There's been democracy going on for ages. We want to end corruption. There's been talking about it for loads of time. But it's a movement. It's a filter. It's like a strain. The problems, they'd come, the bigger problems, they'd be left behind. Then there would be other problems, then others. So through this strain, it's a process we have to go through. Using social media for ICT, as far as the youth is concerned, they're doing their part. They're blogging about it. They're having a voice. The basic thing we can do on our part is at least tell the world what's happening around. There's so many things happening around us that are not fair, that are not correct. We could raise a voice, but we just ignore them because they're everyday things for us. We think that our voice does not make a change. But the truth is that through social media, your voice is being heard. If you speak, there would be someone, maybe someone in the upper connection, and somehow things click. It's just sometimes it's luck and sometimes it's just take times.
So I'd be curious to hear from Nepal and then Sri Lanka, because I'd like to hear from Nepal because you've been going through this transition for a long time, and I think we've seen, we being the whole world, because of the events from December 2010 until December 2011, where social media played an integral part in getting rid of the 4 longest-serving dictators in the world, in the Arab world. But obviously that change was just the beginning, and I think a lot of people had very high expectations, partially fueled by the success of the political change out of social media and those other challenges, whether it's the development challenges or economic challenges. How do you think that's playing out in Nepal?
Exactly. So at the moment, our main problem is that we need to make our constitution. So this is our main focus. So there will be almost all the population of Nepal will be focusing on the constitution. So basically, talking about the economic condition, I think almost all the South Asian countries have almost the same problems. But right now, our main focus is on elections. So I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Okay.
So Nepal's had a transition it's been many years. So do you think there's a particular role now that you have sort of the second chance to restart the transition process and restart the change process, that youth and using the tools that we've talked about can really affect real world change?
Exactly, yes. We've been for transition here for 14 years. So actually, we came out through the monarchy systems. We are right now practicing the real democracy. So actually, the youths are doing a real good job for the constitutional in the process of constitution and election. So actually, there has been some social media campaigns like using Facebook, Twitter. And all the social media platforms. We have lots of bloggers that they are continuously doing different campaigns for election process and all the transactional things. So there has to be something different, like which we never did before. So I think.
Do you want to tell us what that different thing is going to be?
The different thing that's going to be is that we have 300 radio stations in Nepal, and right now most of the radio stations are about to merge, but the social media has become one of the greatest power. We have lots of campaigns that all the newspapers, television stations have their social media platforms, so they are continuously giving news, information, and youths have their blogs and different social network sites, so they're giving information to the mass.
Okay, so as the microphone moves to Sri Lanka, and then let's move the mic to, where's the mic right now? Let's move it to the far side, as the mic moves, we'll hear from Sri Lanka.
Answering that question, whether social media can make a change, let's face the reality. And Joshua, you took out the example of the Arab Spring. Arab Spring happened, there was a change happened because not of social media, because the people wanted to change. Let's face the reality. Social media is only a tool. Social media is only a tool. It itself cannot do any change. So if the people are willing, then social media is a powerful tool. It has made, easier to bring people together. It has made easier spreading messages. And that is the powerful tool in social media. Social media, in that way, it's very powerful. So if the people want change, if they desire for change, they can use it. So social media in itself cannot bring change. So that's what I wanted to point out.
And I just want to remind everyone here that our two countries share this history that whether it was in 1776 or in 1946, is that the greatest empire in the world, whether back in the 1700s or the 20th century, was brought down not by, there was no Facebook back in that time. There was no, and there was very little television, very little radio, and people were able to affect massive historical social change without these tools. And so I think we have to remember that the social change is possible, and what these are tools to make it more effective, or they can be used as tools to stop the social change. Let's take the question, and then as the mic moves around to you, as we're answering the question, then we can get to you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Hans, and my perspective can be from India, and the question is an add-on to what we are discussing here. I feel that in India, people who, or rather youth who are using social media, they have a short-term memory. Something happens, everybody goes there. They don't finish it, something else happens, everybody moves there. So I feel in my country, we are not finishing. Yes, we are finishing some, because one of the judgments which was passed by the courts in India about the gang rape, which everybody must be knowing. So my only question is, what can all of us do, not as a country, but as a world, or as people who use social media, to finish things? We cannot have a short-term we cannot run towards each and everything and leave the others behind. That's it. Thank you.
As the mic moves around, a very famous phrase about democracy, and that we both happen to be very lucky to live in democratic countries, is that democracy is not a state of being. It's not you sort of arrive and you're a democracy forever. Democracy is a process. And I think what we've been hearing from the panelists is that, yeah, you can have the statement up on Facebook. You can even use Facebook to organize and to get people out onto the streets. But you have to keep doing it. It's not like, well, yay, you've got down to the streets and now you're done. You have to make sure that the courts continue to be accountable. You have to make sure that the politicians continue to be accountable. In my particular case, when I mentioned the food stamps were cut, so the food security bill equivalent to the United States, they removed a huge amount of the funding, one part of Congress. And the social media can be a way for people to stay engaged on this issue. But you have to do the engaging. The social media, a friend of yours who posts a story, and they might be the one calling their member of Congress, but if you aren't going to stay engaged, it's a very passive thing. And so I think we've learned that social media is a tool, but that you yourself have to use that tool through the democratic process. I'd like to take that, and then I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up. So after this, I'm going to give the panelists one last chance to give their last thoughts, and then we're going to be around for the rest of the day, so you can pigeonhole us and ask us some questions one-on-one.
Regarding the same thing that you said, on this podium right now, there are three major democracies. The largest democracy, America, the biggest democracy, India, and the most dangerous democracy, Pakistan. Right? So, and democracy, I suppose, signifies gradual change. Gradual, but a very cemented change. We should not go for abrupt changes. Abrupt changes turn out to be revolutions, but they eventually turn out to be failures. A slow and steady, but gradual and cemented change is what we require. The most disheartening thing about India and Pakistan, which is very similar, is the people do not go to vote. There are about 60% turnout in India, and similarly in Pakistan. Imran Khan, who was in opposition in Pakistan, he said that I failed because my supporters did not go to vote for me. Maybe busy on Twitter. In India, I don't know about Pakistan, but in India, any ruling MP, he wins with a margin of about 10% votes. That's it. He has 10% votes of the constituency, and he's elected to represent the whole 100% of the people. If the whole people, if the 100% of the crowd goes to vote, I don't think any politician, anyone can convince such a big crowd about his, by giving some freebies or something, can convince such a big crowd and, win the elections by using illegitimate means. if you may say. So biggest thing, we have a biggest gift with us. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal is about to be, and all these countries, right? We should utilize this gift. Democracy is with us. We should go for vote, and social media should encourage people to vote. Most of the people are satisfied by just tweeting, oh my God, what's going on with my country is doing that, country is doing this, and they're satisfied with it. But they just don't go to vote. Yeah, that's all.
So I'd like to oh, okay. So we're going to take one last question, and right, but we actually ran out of time because I'm a terrible moderator. And we need to wrap up in 3 minutes. So if we can take both these questions, and right before you ask these questions, I'd like to ask, as someone who, it was a small election, but I forgot to vote in it myself. How many of you have voted, whatever country you're from, in your last election? Please raise your hand. The last one. Be honest. So those of you who haven't raised your hand, you can tweet and Facebook all you want, but a democracy eventually comes down to going into the voting booth and casting your vote. So think about that as we take our last couple of questions. And we'll just do the one question right after the other.
Hello. Oh, thank you, Mr. Maldi, for giving me a chance. I would like to raise two questions from Bangladesh to and Pakistan. Just social media has been a changing trend in your democratic, so it's been an interesting story, sharing the story since yesterday. I would like to raise one question to Bangladesh first. Once the blogger were arrested, social media will never change. So what is your strategy to combat to attack those kind of those kind of attack that has been imposed by a government? How do you fight back those kind of unethical things? Is it because of unconstitutional things? So what is your strategy? And next thing, to Pakistan, YouTube has been blocked and all those kind of things in the name of religion. So what is your, can you tell exactly what is your strategy again to fight back those kind of things? Is it you sit idly, or you think that's normal, or you think that's unethical, or what is your intention to do that? That's it.
And then the last question.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The first is that if you advocate, social media and its usage among the youth, but we should also remember that the more powerful it becomes, the greater is the possibility of its misuse. So if we see social media and its use as a right for ourselves, it's our duty to ensure credibility of the information that we have there. So how do we ensure credibility of the information? Because everybody can, say whatever he wants to. And most of the people don't bother to check the facts. The second thing is, how should we avoid the influence of electronic and print media over social media? In Indian context, if maybe you have heard about Durga Shakti Nagpal, it became such a huge trend on Twitter and Facebook. Supreme Court got involved. There are people like Mr. Khemke, there are people like Soni Sori, there are so many other people.
So we have the context, but the question is,
yes.
how do we avoid the influence of print media on social media?
Yes. And the last question, that how do we ensure...
You said two questions.
I'm
now
sorry,
but
three. Well, how do we ensure its freedom? Like, we have the rights for freedom of press. How do we ensure? I come from a stage...
Okay, so how do we ensure freedom? The influence
of media.
Of print media, the strategy in Pakistan, and the strategy in Bangladesh. And then, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Sri Lanka, and we're going to move, and we're going to invert it. So the last word will be given to the lady from Pakistan.
With his point of sustaining a campaign. See, it changes with the trend of us, I hope all of you all watch movies, Bollywood movies. There were times when movies used to be in theaters for years. Now it doesn't even sustain for weeks. So it is more of a social trend, We have this tendency to go towards new things, one after another. So sustaining a campaign is very hard. Social media campaign is very hard. It's very hard and it's very tricky to make a post go viral. See, why this Colaveri went viral and no one knew why. See, no one knew why. So perhaps that's a reasoning. So this comes down to marketing then. But social media as a tool is very powerful. And if you learn the trick of using it very efficiently, then that can be a very, very powerful thing. So sustaining a campaign, whether people like it or not, that depends on the society which you are targeting at. Coming to the other question, your question was on...
Or you can just wrap up.
Okay. So what I think is basically the credibility fact. Social media sites are trying their best to increase credibility. For example, they're having these verified sites. Your account can be verified. There's this blue tick next to your account in Twitter and Facebook, so you can make sure that this is the real person and it's not a parody. Then, of course, credibility, look at it in a social perspective, in a real world perspective. When a certain personality says something, you automatically take from him, you give a social credibility to him, that he's going to say a very true and a very credible statement. And when certain personalities make statements, you say, okay, he's just bluffing. So it's the same in the social media. There are people who easily spread rumors, and there are credible personalities. So it's a very tricky thing, I understand, but let us see in a technological perspective, it's very hard to filter it in such a way. So Twitter and Facebook have killed Nelson Mandela several times. They have killed Justin Bieber several times. And see, they have killed... Oh, they have killed Mr. Bean twice. See, a concern. So it can happen, yes. Abuse happens. As in any other tool, abuse can happen. But let's see the positive side. So I want to end this with a very positive note. So let's look at the positive side, and I think social media can bring a lot more change to the society, especially the youngsters have found an avenue for them to voice their concerns and be more active. Because these youngsters, they say there's an allegation saying that they work in computers, they are not concerned about the society. So now they get an opportunity to work in computers as well as show concern in the social and political issues. Thank you.
Last word. Okay. I think I have to run campaign to encourage people to use social media to actually raise their voice. Now they use social media to share photographs and what they have eaten in the morning, and also to say goodbye or hi and where you are. And I mean, this should be stopped, and we have to. Even they can share photos, but then actually, we have to start campaign against, to use social media to raise their voice against so many issues. That I'm going to do when I go back.
Okay, so first thing about tackling big people or powerful people who are trying to block us. Now, they make everything look like they're doing everything lawfully. So when we against that, they are telling that you are against the law, so we're stopping you. Now, the thing that happened in Bangladesh is we continued our protest, and we did it in kind of the similar way that we did it before the arrest. Okay, so if we used to go to Shahbag Square, we went there similarly the next day of the arrest, and again we started talking about it and why should there be arrest and everything. But yes, we cannot make a very big change on that stage. Why? Because we don't have any policy maker or any government official from the youth side. So since we're talking about the efficiency or effectiveness, the youths are currently not in the planning stage or decision-making stage. So when we grow up, when we go on that level, then we can actually understand the psychology of the current youths and then take the decision from that side. But right now, we only can raise our voice, and that's what we are doing. But we cannot actually make a very big impression against the big people. Then about the freedom, same answer for that too. Yes, the big media, they might start talking against our movement. We cannot actually do something about it, but yes, we can say our words. Now, people choose to believe what they believe, and then again, if it matches with the ideology of the general people, they are going to come, and the changes came in Shahbag Square. There was building collapse in our country. Through social media, 3,900 workers actually went there, and in total 3,900 workers, and massive donations went due to the spreading of messages through social media. So lot of small positive changes are happening currently. So maybe the whole society is not going to change, but it's a very effective tool and it's a faster tool. So the efficiency of it actually makes everything very perfect. And about the credibility. The credibility, if I go outside on the street wearing a t-shirt, jeans, and talk with you about the same thing, you might choose not to believe me. But since I'm sitting here, you are probably believing me. Now the thing is, credibility in a virtual platform, it is not, most of the time, try not to believe anything. Verify yourself. Verify everything with the real world, research on it, and make a connection between the virtual world and the real world. Because if you only stay on at room and support the Shahbag Square movement, you are not going to go anywhere. So as Stan, from director of Accord, he said yesterday that people nowadays are sitting at home and writing about the movements, but they are not actually being part of the movement, especially the youth. So if we do that, nothing is going to come. But if we make a transition between two, then I think the thing comes, and when you are in the real world, you will see what is true and what is not true. So credibility issue will be solved. And that's what I think. I think it's a very powerful and effective tool, and thanks for listening to me.
So the reason behind showing that video, like how to become a 21st century activist, so as a youth activist, as a normal citizen, we can really do lots of things by social media. So Facebook is not for me, Facebook is not for just liking the pictures, uploading the photos of the relatives and something else. We can really do lots of things through Facebook, and your status would be your Facebook, I mean your photos, and your post should be for cause. So it's according to like a thing. So that's really Facebook and Twitter and almost every social network sites are really a tricky and tough thing. So if we can use it for different causes, so we can change the community.
There was a question about YouTube being banned and whether Pakistanis are working for it or not. Believe me, we aren't missing anything on YouTube thanks to the proxies over there. I have friends who are children of the government officials, and my friends, when they ask their parents to work on this issue, so the parents themselves tell their children that use the proxy, just don't interfere. So that's sad, but well, and there was this thing about what is trending, whether the right material is trending up or not, whether it's wrong or not. We live in a democracy, majority rules. So whatever the people are liking, we'll have to have patience for listening to it, because that's what the majority people is wanting. There was another question about evolution versus revolution at the back. Yes, I am in favor of evolution, but what people are expecting from the social media is a revolution. Revolution is not always the answer. We've had examples of social media being used for revolution, but as soon as it comes, it's like a bubble. Then there's an explosion after it as well. So I'm hoping that in future, the social media is much used for on the evolution part. Other questions I don't much remember, but I would like to end with the positive note that I'm hoping that not just the youth, but we South Asians have similar problems with similar kind of people, and I'm hoping that we use this tool for the benefit, and this region gets stronger, gets together, and gets to do better things in the future. Thanks.
So let's give a big round to the panelists. My great aunt, who was the first telegraph operator in her province in rural Canada, always likes to say that reality is on this side of the screen. And so as important as engaging in social media is, remember, I think the lesson we've learned, I think all the panelists would agree, social media is a tool, change is in the real world. Thank you very much for coming. You're going to be the ones that make that change happen. So keep this conversation going amongst yourselves. Thank you all.
I know it's hard to start a session right after lunch. Yes, everybody has their cold sandwiches and having a cup of hot coffee. So we would like to keep it as informal as possible. That's what we have been doing for last 2 days. So let's start. We already have a very interesting panel in front of us, and we have a very interesting topic that we are going to talk for the next 90 minutes, I suppose. So 1.5 hours. Today what we will be talking about is information communication and technology for public health, and we would like to see how we can go towards a healthier South Asia. And we have a very interesting, like I said, very interesting panel among us. And before going to the panel, let me introduce myself. My name is Shusmita Khan, and I come from Bangladesh. I'm a nutritionist by training, and I do public health research mostly. And what we have with us is Dr. Sandhya Ramalingam. She is the head of measurement and evaluation for Arogya World. They do a lot of work in, well, one of the things that they do is use of mobile technology for diabetes disease in rural India. So she'll be talking about that. And then we have Mr. Bobby Jefferson. When I say it mobile technology, he's the guy. He's from Futures Group, and he does a lot of work with using technologies, how we can use it for better public health. And then lastly, we have with us is Radharani Mitra. She is from BBC Media Action, so that says it all, that how media can be integrated in communications and public health. So I'm going to give the mic to them and ask them to introduce themselves and say a little bit about what they do. We'll start from you.
Good afternoon. I'm Radharani Mitra. I'm the National Creative Director and Executive Producer of BBC Media Action in India. As Sushmita said, the name itself implies that we work with media. We are BBC's development communication arm, international charity arm, and we work across 24 countries using all forms of media. And I want to really underline all forms of media, because media is no longer just television, radio, newspapers. Media is virtually every kind of touch point that audiences interact with. So what I would be talking about today is the work we have done on mHealth for the state of Bihar. This actually was quite a new thing for me. The first time, personally, I and even this office, the India office, was working with mobile apps. So it's been a very, very interesting, challenging, but ultimately rewarding journey. And I hope to share some of the learnings, challenges, barriers, above all, the excitement of working with a form of media, with a platform that's reaching out to millions of people all over this country.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really glad you're here on After Lunch. I'm Bobby from Futures in Washington, D.C., but we have offices here in Gurgaon, Bihar, and in other states in India. The topic will be about technology, but it's not really about technology. It's really about how to effectively use the technology in places where there's no running water, people do not speak English, they have no power, and they don't want your technology. So I'd like to share some of the lessons and the challenges that we have faced for the past 10 years and try to share that with the audience, with you today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandhya Ramalingam, and I'm head of the evaluation process at Arogya World. Arogya World is a non-for-profit organization which is actually focusing on non-communicable diseases. And today I would want to share with you some of the challenges and some of the trends that we've seen, particularly in the area of diabetes, and how we've used mobile technology to reach out to the pan-India population to actually see how we could impact their behavior towards a better, healthier country. Okay.
So let's start with the data first and see what Dr. Sandhya has to say as being the measurement and evaluation head. And how do you find do you find it hard to get from data from rural India and then transfer it into mobile technology and let them use it? I'll put more emphasis on technology when we come to Bobby, because that's his forte. But still, how do you see it?
Sure. I just want to take about 30 seconds to just explain the program itself. It is pan-India, and it's going across about 11 languages. So it was not just confined to English or Hindi. It went across urban and rural. Male, female was not a distinction. And then what we did was we had crafted these text messages towards diabetes prevention and not management. It's very important that people don't understand the difference that, before you get the disease, it's important to prevent it from coming to you. And that part of understanding, there's a big gap. You talk to any teenager, and this is going to be the biggest crisis for the country going forward. And if people don't realize and change their behavior, it is going to be like, we're going to be #1 in at least having diabetes in the world. So what we did was we used a trans-theoretical model approach to understand how we should craft these messages and what is the impact, what kind of messages should we give? Just medical messages, or should it be text, just general about diabetes, or should it be lifestyle and exercise, and you should change, and what should we be telling them about? After doing that bit of research, we did create these messages. We tested it with a small population, and then we sent it out using Nokia's platform. So we serendipitously chose Nokia as a platform because they had this Nokia Life Tools as a app on their phones, and it sort of went to the mid-level phones of Nokia, so it could reach a larger population. So we sent it out twice every week for about 26 weeks across to 11 languages across pan-India, all Nokia subscribers using this middle end, not very high end, not very low end, but middle end phones. So what we were doing, that in and of itself was a big challenge. So the way we evaluated the program was we had this group of experimentals that we call, and the other group was the controls, which did not receive any messages, but they were not Nokia subscribers either. So they were open, any adult who was not a Nokia subscriber. So then we could really evaluate after 6 months what the program had done to them after receiving all the messages. So we did a test of, we did the survey before we started the program and understood what they were doing in terms of exercise, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of eating habits, and we had very pointed questions, not that do you exercise, or are you eating healthy, but we really had questions like, are you eating, how many times do you eat bhaji bonda, or very specifically tailored to the state. And then after 6 months, we did the same survey with the same people, not really same people, but within the same cohort population, to see if they have changed their behavior. Do they walk instead of taking the elevator? Do they, do they go to the market by walk, or do they prefer a car? Questions like that, which make you, and then you can have their derived behavior. Then you can then come to a conclusion with the analysis as to has their behavior changed or not. So that